Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of In the Box. It is episode 5. I'm joined yet again by Matt Babiak. How are you doing? Your second appearance on the show.
Yeah, great stuff. I need to apologize so dearly. Last week I said that Jake Neighbors played in the
Yeah, you got
NCAA
cooked. You got cooked for
because
that.
in my head I guess I thought he was teammates with Snuggard, and that was not true.
Yeah,
He was a
yeah.
Canadian junior player. I apologize for the mistake.
We're all about accountability here, and we're gonna dive right into it. We don't have a ton of hockey topics to talk about outside of my New York Islanders. Unfortunately, is the one major thing that is just collapsing in the NHL right now. But we're gonna go through some of the news and what has happened recently, and then we're gonna do fun things like contender and pretender. We're gonna go through our updated NHL awards, and then agree and disagree with your guys' takes at the end. So let's dive into it. We're going to start with the doom and the gloom with my New York Islanders, a 1-3 week, including losses to Columbus and Anaheim when they scored 1 goal in those games combined. Yeah, I guess I'll probably start with this.
Yeah,
It's more so it's close to home. It's embarrassing. It's the exact same team, but now they're obviously down Barzell for 4 to 6 weeks, Pelech 4 to 6 weeks, Duclair's still out 3 to 5 weeks. So they're 4-6-2, I believe, or something like that. It's about as dark as it gets in terms of the last decade. Not since 2018. It's just embarrassing. I don't know where this team goes from here. I don't think Patrick Waugh can massively in terms of coach this team to actually start to finish. It just seems desperate. It seems desperate when you have guys like Simon Holmstrom playing on the first line already 3 weeks into the NHL season. It's not good. They're not giving Sorokin any goal support. He has 1.8 goals per game going for him in his last 6 games. I think they're going to still just scrap around. People think that they're going to still suck. I ran a poll and 91% of people said under 87 points. I don't think they're going to be that bad. But in prior years, there was a clear route to the playoffs. And with teams like Ottawa playing much better, New Jersey obviously is going to be in the mix. I'm fully just lost on hope. And you can't even sell that much because everybody signed long term. But I'll probably talk more about it. But what's your thoughts?
All right, my thoughts are the Islanders are 31st in the league in offense.
Yep.
Anaheim's the only team worst. They just lost who is supposed to be their best offensive player. I mean, Barzal has not been great this year. That's a big reason why their offense is so poor. But it's not gonna get better.
Matt Martin's the
him
replacement.
And now Casey Cizikas playing second line minutes. That's not going to make the offense better. Duclair being out is not going to make the offense better. I don't really understand where they're supposed to go from here. I also looked at, I want to point out, they have one of the easiest strengths of schedule that they've already
they're
played
dropping
so far.
Again. Columbus, Anaheim, not get a single point out of those games. It's just so
Detroit's
mind-numbing.
probably not a playoff team.
Yeah, 1-0. Yeah.
They already ran through Buffalo, Montreal, Columbus. They got wins on a couple of those, I believe. But they've
almost blew it against Montreal. They wanted it the shootout. Thank God.
They've mostly played the easy teams so far, right? You have not had to run into Carolina. You ran into the Rangers for the first time this weekend and got whooped. That was hard to watch. I also don't really know where the Islanders are supposed to go from here because, like you said, there's so few tradable pieces. I mean, their one big move in the Lou era was let's get Bo Horvat, a career 25 goal scorer for his career in the one half season.
His year and a half has been 40. Good with the Islanders, though. Yeah. I don't even know what the move would be at this point because they do have everybody long term. I guess you could go out and trade for a legit top line left wing, but you thought that you got that with Anthony Duclair. It seems like they're kind of out of moves. They could technically sell Brock Nelson. They could technically sell Palmieri. But what's the point of getting an 18-year-old? There's just no point of investing, doing a retool. They had maybe a choice in the summer of 2022 to do that. That's what I thought they were going to do. I thought they were going to take that 13th overall pick and kind of retool. But by now, there's just no point. Barzell, Dobson, these guys are all in their prime. It's not like they're up and coming guys back in 2022 when they were 21 and 24 years old. There's really no moves left for this team. And it's going to sound stupid as hell, but I think if you do anything, you probably double down. People saying that they should sell just don't understand. You still have a franchise netminder. You still have these pieces that could potentially work. You either fully tear it down or you double down. You know what I'm saying? There's no retool in the scenario that is going to lead to this team being highly competitive in 2028, 2029. You have 3-4 more years with this team, and then it's probably just nuke it, which I'm fine with. But I think you got to do something.
You're just so stuck either way,
Yeah.
I feel like. I mean, you can go all in. Do I think it will work? No. And I figure the 90 some percent of people who are betting the under on them right now
Mhm.
agree that even if you get that top
They're
line
not one
forward,
move away,
it's
yeah.
not going to work. But you're definitely right when you say that you can't like do anything to move people. I mean, Horvat and Barzal, you look at their contracts and you look at their production over the last year, 2 years. I don't think even if you're able to find someone to take on like a big contract commitment
Mhm.
for 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, I'm not sure you're going to get a good return for that. Sorokin is probably, clearly the best player and best value on the team, but historically, the trade returns for number one goalies are not as good as you'd like for a guy of Sorokin's caliber.
Ye
So I don't know what the move is there.
Yeah, and again, it's not just Dobbs, and I mean, it's not just Horvat, it's not just Barzell, it's Gigi Peugeot has like 2 more years after this. Pelech and Polak have like 5 to 6 more years. It's not just a couple of your core pieces are signed long term. Scott Mayfield, Pierre Engvall, everybody is signed long term. I guess you could theoretically trade Dobbs. You wouldn't trade Dobbs because again, what the fuck's the point of a retool if you're going to trade your 24-year-old
He's the
number one
youngest guy
defenseman?
in
Yeah,
there.
it's
Yeah.
like everybody saying trade Brock Nelson. It just doesn't make sense. Brock Nelson's been a perennial the past 3 years, 35, actually 37 and 33 guy for 70 points. I guess you could trade him for like a 22-year-old in a second round pick. But that 22-year-old, the odds that he turns into Brock Nelson now the next 2 to 3 years, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You need to pick a lane. And clearly, as long as Lou Lamoriello is the general manager, that lane is going to be to go all in. Once they traded for Bo Horvat, that kind of was like the point of no return for me. So I've already been like hands up, like we're trying to win. I screamed for a rebuild in 2022 when we traded for Bo Horvat. That's a crazy thing. Like, people saying like they're dead in the water. When they traded for Bo Horvat, they were like 5 points out of the playoffs when that happened. That was like late January, came out of nowhere. So it wouldn't surprise me if something like that did happen. I guess this year it would be a defenseman that they would go after. Oh no, but the offense has been so bad. I don't know. They need everything. They literally
They're
need
not
fucking
one
everything.
player away.
Yeah, they need like call up the Flames, get Rasmus Anderson and Nazem Kadri, who was supposed to sign with New York to begin with. I don't know. I'm still somewhat optimistic. I think people are somewhat underrating this team, but in the sense of like they could sneak into the 8 seed and then lose in 5 games, like not actually like make any noise. But the pieces are still there to a degree. They it's just something mentally. I don't even know. I don't even know. Let's do you have anything else on this? I'm defeated by it.
I don't think the pieces are there. I think earlier on you talked about you were bringing in Anthony Duclair to be that top line
I
forward. I like Anthony Duclair's game. If you are bringing in Anthony Duclair to be a top line forward on a playoff team, I think you have a lot more problems than you can fix
Yeah.
with one trade.
I'm just saying the pieces are there to be competitive in the wild card race. I'm not saying like the pieces are there to actually contend because I've seen them be a wild card team the past 2 years. And yeah, the fact that Sorokin is playing so good, seventh in the entire NHL in goals saved above expected, 922, and has a 3-3-1 record. It just goes to show the lack of finishing talent on this team, and Lou Lamoriello has not addressed this. Do you think Lou's gonna survive if they miss the playoffs?
He shouldn't, but I don't know how deeply Lou is entrenched
Mm.
in the whole organization. For all I know, he's too big to fail right now.
Yeah, I think the owners kind of do see him as, which I kind of don't blame him because again, with the Lou Lamoriello tenure, it has been wildly successful compared to other eras of Islanders hockey outside of the 1980s dynasty. So I don't really blame the owners being like, we had Garth Snow for a decade. We made the playoffs like 2 times, won one series. For them to be like, this guy is so established and is going to be a Hall of Famer one day. For them to just be like, we'll run it back one more year. I think age is a factor. He is like 81 years old. Maybe he just hangs it up, like not out of disgrace, but he just says like, I can't handle this. Kind of what he did in New Jersey to a degree. Just be like, I'm getting out of here before it gets really ugly. Yeah, Patrick Waugh's probably regretting taking that job. I'm sure he probably could have gotten a job this past summer that would have been much better and have way more future in terms of versus the Islanders. It's not good. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I hope Patrick Raw is still able to get other jobs after this because I do think he's a decent coach and this position, this team is not being fair to his coaching
Mhm.
talents.
Yeah, yeah. It was always going to be an uphill battle. I think he just saw like the clear evident like job back in the NHL and took it. I don't blame him because he was out of the NHL for almost a decade. But yeah, I think him making it to January 1st, 2026, the odds are definitely stacked against his favor. I don't think he's going to get fired midseason this year, but if they miss the playoffs, I think you need to do something like that. And I still like Lou Lamoriello overall. It's nothing against him. Well, it kind of is something against him. He did blow up this team too great, but like it's overall successful. I said it nonstop, but it just has been an absolute train wreck towards the end. And unless Ilya Sorokin goes like Super Saiyan towards down the stretch, this team is probably going to miss the playoffs. But we also had a trade that went down this week. Timothy Liljegren, after playing just one game this season for the Toronto Maple Leafs, basically getting beat out by Connor Timmins for that final right-handed defense spot with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He has been traded for a 2025 third-round pick. Granted, it's the better of Colorado and Edmonton's. It's not like the first or second pick in the third round, basically a second-round pick. Sixth-round pick in Matt Benning. What do you think of Timothy Liljegren heading out west?
All right, I pulled plenty of good stats here on Liljegren because I really want to dive into this. It's such an interesting, such a Dubas type pick here. 2022, Liljegren looked fantastic, young player coming up. The analytics loved him, right? 55% Corsi, 59% XG rate. Last year, he plays most of his minutes with Mark Giordano. Still really good, 57% XG rate. Giordano doesn't play in the playoffs, though. The other guy who Liljegren spent time with is Joel Edmondson, who had that pair 47% XG rate in the regular season, 37% in the playoffs when they got absolutely caved in. That playoffs, the point of no return, I think, for Liljegren in Toronto.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, I'm optimistic maybe that he can still be a very productive, maybe second line type player with a decent partner, and Edmondson just wasn't that partner. But I understand for sure he's a bad decision maker with the puck. He is. There's no way around it. I wanted to pull stats on this too. He had 2.4 giveaways per 60 last year. For context on what's going on with that, Morgan Riley had 2.3. Morgan Riley had fewer giveaways per game, which is crazy because Morgan Riley's the main puck handler on that blue line. The guy who Toronto traded away, Rasmus Sandin, had half that many giveaways. He had 1.3 per 60. So if you're a Toronto fan and your problem with Liljegren is he's just an awful decision maker, too many risky passes, dumb turnovers, absent-minded plays, you're right. You're fair when you say that. But all of that said, I think he has solid potential. I think he could do reasonably pretty well in San Jose, where there's a lot less pressure media-wise and like the hype of him coming up. And I'm optimistic that you're looking at like a perfectly okay second rounder, good deal for San Jose.
Yeah, I think what it really came down to is he's making $3 million. That's for a guy that wasn't even cracking the lineup, and if he did, was playing only like 17, 18 minutes a night probably. Toronto just can't afford that. They have a bunch of guys on LTIR that still have to come back. They had to clear some money. I do think Liljegren still has the offensive potential to be good in San Jose. And if you're San Jose, like, again, they have Edmonton, Colorado in their own third-round pick. What's the point? You might as well try it out. Who's he taking minutes from? Like Jan Ruda? I think it's definitely a win-win for both teams. I think Toronto will eventually use that third-round pick, potentially at the deadline this year, to actually acquire more so of a playoff guy. But Liljegren, it's just every single year in the playoffs, it seemed like he was a liability to a degree. And if you're Toronto, although they are struggling a decent amount, you don't really care about the regular season numbers. And he has been solid, like 25-ish points at the NHL level. You're thinking more about playoffs. You're thinking more about bang for your buck in terms of that being such a cap-tight team. So as a result, I think it's kind of a win-win for both teams. I probably would have said that he may have got a third-round pick, probably more so a fourth-round pick. But if you're San Jose and it's just a revolving door at defense right now, a 24, 25-year-old that does have very strong analytics and maybe isn't a long-term solution, but can be there for a couple years, provide some solid value, and then maybe you flip him down the line or something like that. I really like it for both teams. It really just comes back around to that $3 million. That is a lot of money for a number 5 or number 6 defenseman, especially in Toronto's case where every single player wants as much money as possible.
I just want to hammer home when we're talking about Toronto's defense here, that they traded away Rasmus Sandin in some bizarre arbitrage. Get rid of the defensemen for draft picks and then use other draft picks to get other defensemen. And in the 2 years since that trade, they've acquired maybe 3 or 4, right, defensemen at the deadlines. Not a single one of them has been as good as Rasmus Sandin.
Yeah, that was a weird move. I always hated that. I think Washington definitely got the better of that deal.
Like, use that 3rd round pick, bring in more players like veteran D-men in for a playoff run, but like, who are you going to bring in? Labushkin again?
Yeah.
You're going to bring in Eric Gustafsson? Like,
Yeah.
those are, I think they're downgrades over Liljegren. They're clearly downgrades over Rasmus Sandin, who they just gave away for, I still struggle to figure out the reason. I think he would be a difference maker if he was still in Toronto. But yeah, as it is, they're in this weird spot where they have a ton of competent defensemen who can play 3rd pair minutes, and really not a lot of guys that you feel actually good about leading you in playoffs.
Yeah, they have a bunch. Connor Timmins, Yanni Hakanpää still is like on LTIR. He's a right-handed guy. He's just also just not a Craig Berube guy. Not trying to be like old school hard nosed, but I think Craig Berube definitely follows that more so. If I'm gonna have a 3rd pair defenseman, it's gonna be a more big physical guy. He is more so of a Kyle Dubas player. So once Dubas is gone, once you have Brad Treliving, once you have Craig Berube in there, and you're making $3 million and you're not that physical and you turn over the puck as much as you do, maybe you can be in the lineup if you're creating a ton of offense without a bunch of downside. But if you're giving the puck up that much, you're not going to have a spot on a team like Toronto Maple Leafs where the pressure is so high to go out and win in the playoffs.
Agreed. Yeah, he's a tough sell for the old school type guys because he's a big player, but he doesn't play big. He's a true Swedish defenseman there. When he plays good defense, it's skating and positioning. It's not because he
laying
plays
someone
big.
out. Yeah, it's not Yanni Hakanpää laying somebody out when he plays 15 minutes a night. But we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about what do we have next up here. The Colorado Avalanche. They just went on an 0-3 week. Ross Colton broke his goddamn foot after he was having a great start to the season. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. He had 8 goals, 1 assist, 9 points. Lehkonen was thankfully activated. What's your concern for the Avalanche right now in terms of making the playoffs? They're 5-7 right now.
I'm at a medium concern level, and it's not for me so much about the injuries. It's more about like the lack of depth in general. How this team, because of their cap situation, has bled depth over the last couple years. So now they're extremely shallow and top heavy. So if you lose even one of those guys, right? Like even if you lose just Lehkonen for any extended period of time, you're in trouble there because the depth is not good.
Yeah, he's their clear cut like 6th or 7th best player.
Yeah, Ross Colton and Casey Middlestat were having nice years, so it's unfortunate that they're picking up injuries, but like a team with Colorado's playoff ambitions should not be relying on those types of players in the first place.
Casey Middlestat is a good player. Ross Colton, I do agree. I think his start was a little bit fake. Casey Middlestat is a legit. In Buffalo, he's putting up 55 to 60 points. I just want to clarify that.
I'm not 100% agree to disagree.
I agree right now. I sold him in fantasy. I got him for Dylan Larkin. That was a steal. Alex Geisler, if you're watching this. But Casey Middlestat's a good second line setter. Not great, but
he's a nice player. If he's the 2C and your ambition is Stanley Cup winner, I don't think that's going to cut it. If you have Nathan
McKinnon as your ones, Nazem Kadri's definitely better. I think they could win with Casey Middlestat as their 2C, assuming everybody's healthy. I think that's possible.
It's just it's so tough. They're so thin on the wings. I mean, you got Logan O'Connor playing top 6 minutes over there now. It's brutal. Lehkonen coming back should be extremely helpful for them. Valeri Nichushkin, I saw earlier today, is skating again, although that does not necessarily mean he's going to be playing super soon. That's not clear. But if you don't have that forward depth, which they used to have, like such crazy forward
insane.
depth, right?
2023, that's like unrivaled.
On that Stanley Cup team, Andre Burakovsky was like their 8th best
forward.
No,
that's like, I don't know if that's gonna happen. Be replicated in like the next decade.
It might not be. But if you don't have those guys in the forward depth clicking, and the goalie situation's been just terrible.
Yeah, that's where I kind of wanted to go. Because like the injuries suck and stuff, but like Georgiev's been healthy. He just straight up stinks. So they might have to rely on a Nunnan to really carry them. In terms of their injuries, in terms of them making the playoffs too, the injuries, I agree. It's like I'd rather lose Ross Colton, Lehkonen, and I'm trying to think who else is hurt. Like That's not even worth like one Nathan McKinnon in my opinion. Like until McKinnon and Rantanen get hurt, that's like where I'd be really concerned. Them losing their middle six, I'm not too concerned. But there is starting to be some growing concern in terms of them making the playoffs because Minnesota is 8-2-1 or 8-1-2 because LA, even without Drew Doughty, still has a 62.5% points percentage. Nashville and Colorado are starting to get into some like dicey waters of one of them is probably going to have to miss because Minnesota is probably taking a spot, probably taking that third Central Division spot this season. So although 3 weeks ago on this podcast, I really wasn't that worried. I'm kind of starting to get decently worried for both of those teams if LA just keeps on churning out points at a decent rate and doesn't really have a clear identifiable weakness because Brent Clark has been so good, because their tandem has been pretty solid. I'm starting to get a little bit nervous for the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, I think you're honestly underselling Minnesota. We'll get into that a little bit later, I guess. But as you saying, like probably the third spot in the Central, I think they might be better than that. Like
we'll see, yeah, better. Definitely.
I mean, Winnipeg is another team you looked at the beginning of the year, say, okay, maybe they're vulnerable. They made the playoffs last year, maybe they dropped down. Right now, it doesn't look like that's happening. Dallas is Dallas. So like that Central Division,
it's gonna be
a
wild
tough.
card. Yeah, I'd say all three spots are like nearly locked up. Yeah, I agree. So it's gonna probably come down to Nashville, Colorado, LA for 2 spots. I think we can agree Utah's kind of magical run. They've kind of fell off a decent amount. Seattle, I was decently high on, but they're starting to lose some games. It's like, yeah, one of those teams are gonna have to miss. I'd probably still say it's gonna be LA, but it's genuinely like each team has like 45 to 60% chance of making the playoffs. It's going to be tough. Colorado needs to start turning it around quick. It needs to start winning games quick after an 0-3 week. It's really disappointing. But yeah, I'd start to be a little bit nervous if I was a Colorado Avalanche fan. Definitely.
Absolutely.
All right, we got 2 other things before we dive into our NHL awards. McDavid out 2 to 3 weeks. What's your read on that? They're 2-0 without him. Is McDavid a fraud? LVP, least valuable player?
Oh man, I would love to say yes, just to drive the ratings up, get some views in here, some hot takes. The Oilers going into yesterday's game had the 3rd worst offense in the league. Now it's 5th worst. It's bumped up yesterday from what they were doing. It's really not McDavid's fault at all what's been happening. It's just like this really emphasizes how out of this world he has to be, right? Because if he's a 90-point player instead of a 120-point player,
there might be scrapping for that wild card
they
spot,
might miss the playoffs. You know, like that's with Draisaitl over a point a game and McDavid at a point a game so far in this year, and that offense is still struggling so bad. Zach Hyman, 2 goals, 2 assists on the season, which was 1-1 going into yesterday.
Yeah, he heated up against the Flames.
He's been brutal. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 34-point pace this year. He had 67 last year. That's half. His point production being cut in half this year.
You're making me more optimistic about the Oilers. I'm not. They're still 6-5-1. That's the thing that's kind of crazy. Like they're having this bad of start. Last year they were 2-9-1 to start the year. So if anything, like I think their underlying numbers are still solid. Zach Hyman has like 7 expected goals this season. He's still generating a lot. I'm not worried about the Edmonton Oilers. You seem a little bit worried.
I'm a tiny bit worried. Am I worried that they're going to miss the playoffs? No. Am I worried that they're going to waste another year of McDavid and Draisaitl's prime and not be real contenders? Probably. Evander Kane's a dynamic player. You get him back at some point, hopefully. Maybe that changes the dynamic. Beauchard and Ekholm have been one of the best pairs in the National Hockey
they're amazing.
League.
The rest.
They've been incredible. Yeah. They've been really carrying the team while like the offense numbers 3, 4, 5, 6 guys have struggled. It's been the defense carrying them.
Yeah. Again, the thing that scares me, people, it's Stuart Skinner still is playing like shit. That's where things could go awry, and I could see them losing in the first round, just absolutely embarrassing themselves. The second pair also needs to step up. Whoever Darnell Nurse is playing with needs to be good. Yes, that top pair is absolutely money every single year. Darnell Nurse can make or break that team. We saw that in the series against Florida. He kind of not single-handedly lost it to them, but some critical, just blown assignments by him in big moments. But yeah, as you said before, I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to be perfectly fine. Now, is McDavid potentially cooked in the Hart race? We'll see. Slow start, missed 4 games. we'll get into the awards very shortly. But yeah, I'm not too worried. Much compared to the Colorado Avalanche, I have a lot more worries about them compared to the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, agree with that absolutely. I do want to point out though, Edmonton, their next 4 games, they have the Devils tonight, and then Vegas and the Canucks. That's a really
Yeah.
tough chunk of the schedule to go through without McDavid. So if that turns into an 0-3 run, that could be a concern, maybe.
Definitely. I think he could. He was at optional skate today. Might play Saturday, I heard. So that'll be big. Another big star, superstar. David Pastrnak got benched, straight up benched in their game against the Seattle Kraken in the third period. You reading into anything with that? Which they won. They've won their last 2.
Yeah, it was honestly, it's an absurd situation, right? So they dominate that game so intensely. They outshot Seattle. I think it was 17-3 in the first period. Pasternak had like a 90% XG rate on the game. I saw the turnover. I saw the highlight. I don't even think it was like a terrible play from Pasternak. I think it was an unfortunate play during a bad line change that created a breakaway the other way, but nothing came of that breakaway. I'm a little bit confused, honestly, and it's very surprised that Boston would do something so drastic, because Pasternak is your best player.
By far.
There's no doubt about it right now.
Miles with the way Marchand has kind of regressed in recent years. Yeah, I think it is weird because you thought you'd maybe bench him when they 3 games ago when they were 3-5-1. The fact that you bench him in the third period coming off back-to-back, or was about to be back-to-back shutout wins. I'm not reading too much into it. If anything, he should be benching Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, Morgan Geekie, Trent Frederick, who have 2 to 3 points in 11 games. I just said that in a YouTube video earlier today. Their middle 6 is crapping the bed. I don't know why you take it out on your best player, but Pasta can be lazy at times and can make some stupid decisions. We've seen that before. So I guess I don't hate the idea of kind of being if I can bench him, I'm gonna bench any of you motherfuckers. Nobody is safe. But it definitely was weird given the circumstances of it being so. Maybe it was load management. Maybe they're just swinging it as load management and just saying, "Oh, I benched them," just to scare everybody else. But it's just load management. But we're gonna dive into our updated awards picks. I think we did this after the first or second week, which was obviously ridiculous at the time. I think I had Jake Ottinger as my Hart winner. I had I'm trying to think. I had Adam Fox as my Norris winner. But we're gonna go through it. Up first, we'll say the topic, and then we'll go 3, 2, 1, and then we'll just blur it out because we're gonna have some of the same picks. All right, Hart. 3, 2, 1. Kaprizov. Yes. Okay. I'll go first. Yeah, the Wild. Second best record in the entire NHL right now. He has 21 points in 11 games. Other guys like Boldy, Zuccarello, Ross, Rossi, and Eck are all playing very good as well, but he's still leading the team in goals, leading the team in points by 7. He's playing 22.59 a month, a night, 59 a month, 22.59 a night, which is the most among any forwards. He was my Hart runner-up, so I'm a little bit biased, clearly, but I think that it's pretty easily him going away as of right now.
I mean, it's just the jump, the leap that Minnesota has taken this year. And it's not because they brought in new players, right? It's not because the team around him got more well-rounded.
Yeah, it's basically the same
You're
roster.
seeing him and also Matt Boldy, to be fair. You're seeing both of them take big steps off of where they were. And Kaprizov was already a fantastic player, a top 20 player in the NHL easily, maybe top 10. It depends. You can debate around there. But with the leap he's taken so far this year, I don't think there's any debate that he's in that very top tier group, possibly the best wing in the National Hockey League. His production so far this year definitely is.
Yeah, even I remember it was the last 41 games of last season or something, or maybe 44 games of last season. He had 38 goals, or 33 goals, 38 assists for 71 points. He put up legit 125 point pace. He started off slow, and so did the entire Minnesota Wild. That's why they missed the playoffs last year. But we've seen this guy just go nuclear at times. 2022, he had 47 goals, 61 assists for 108 points. So this, obviously, he's not going to keep up at 21. He's at 55 goal, 155 point pace right now. But I think it's very possible that he could go for 55 goals and 70 assists, which sounds absolutely nutty when looking at it. But yeah, I think I would bet him right now to win the Hart. He's still I think he actually is at 550 now. He's actually one of the co-favorites, but I still think even that is solid value because as we were talking about before, Minnesota looks like a near lock to be a playoff team and a decently high playoff team. And the dude plays so much.
Yes, I mean, the usual suspects are not in the race so much. McDavid, out for some games now. He's losing time to pick up on those counting stats. Nate McKinnon is on a struggling team. He is not surrounded by a ton of talent. It's going to be more tough than usual, I think, for him to pick up those large numbers of assists that he's so used to. That Jack Hughes breakout that a lot of people were anticipating has not happened.
I think he's at 50-1 right now, in fact.
I mean, that was a popular pick for who's
that was my pick
guy
last
on the
year.
cusp
That was my
take
pick last
the
year.
next step into the discussion.
Last year I tried to be hipster. I abandoned him. Yeah, and Kucherov too. He's playing very good, but a lot of people on Tampa is putting up massive stats, and they're only 7-5 right now. I'm trying to think any other contenders. Actually, we'll get into one of the ones towards the end that we're talking about. But yeah, I don't want to say it's like his award to lose at this point, 11 games in, but he's looking very, very damn good in terms of that. And yeah, going back to it, other guys like McKinnon, other guys like McDavid, he's so clearly the best player on his team. It's not even a remote debate, although I love Matt Boldy, compared to, McKinnon has Rantanen, McDavid has Draisaitl, Kucherov has Gensel in point. He just has that clear argument in terms of being the most valuable guy. Next up, the Norris. I kind of know how you're going to lead on this, and I don't know who you're going to pick. 3, 2, 1. Cale Makar.
Oh
Cale
my
Makar. He is very anti-Cale Makar, and I understand his sentiments. Do you want me to go first on why
you
I
go
pick Cale
first.
Makar?
You go first.
Yeah, he has what, 21 points in 12 games right now.
He has the most points. Yes,
and it's so. I agree with you. When it was game 7 or 8, and he had like 13, and people were comparable in his offense, I did see it. I did go Adam Fox because of the underlying numbers. But I just think it's been so impressive offensively. And yes, you're going to bring up his numbers with and without Nathan McKinnon, but I think context is needed to that to a degree, considering the fact that the other forwards that he has to play with outside of that line are absolute crap because of the injury situation for the most part. And still, even away from McKinnon, he's still outscoring opponents in terms of actual goals. I know we talk about expected goals a lot, but it hasn't actually resulted in goals against while he's on the ice. So yeah, I think a guy that's on pace for like 130 points. That's kind of hard to debate, although I do skew more towards even strength numbers. The power play at the end of the day is the goals still count the same on the power play, and he still has like 10 even strength points, which is crazy. And his expected goals at 5-on-5 are still 58.4%. I just got to go with Cale Makar. I understand that, and even Josh Morrissey is also kind of power play dependent this year, so I couldn't even go with him in second. I'm going with Cale Makar. Call him a McKinnon merchant real quick. He's pulling up the stats right now.
Yes, that is a McKinnon merchant right there.
I think it's closer. I think it's closer while you're pulling this up. I think it's obviously closer than people are acting like. People are saying that Makar's a legit heart threat right now. I think that's kind of ridiculous when you look at the McKinnon numbers on and off. But McKinnon's the second best player in the entire NHL. Obviously, your numbers are going to be decently better with McKinnon than without when your other forwards you're playing with is like Ivan. So
yeah, I mean, if we're handing out the Tyson Barrie for scoring the most points, I vote Cale Makar also.
Yeah, he's got jokes.
I do, yeah. Quinn Hughes rocking a 66% XG rate, second best, I believe, in the entire NHL of any defenseman playing top minutes. His even strength scoring pace is exactly the same as it was last year. He's got, pulling up right now, 9 points in 10 games, which is good, right? That's not overwhelming compared to Cale Makar, but that's a good number.
Yeah.
And 6 of those are at even strength. That's really solid, good stuff. Vancouver is actually playing really well right now, unlike Colorado. And I do think Quinn Hughes deserves most of the credit for that. I mean, who else are you going to give the credit for, right? Elias Pettersson has
JT
really
Miller,
not been very good
Connor
this
Garland,
year.
Kevin Lankinen.
They have good players.
Yeah.
My point is, Elias Pettersson has really not been good this year. That's supposed to be one of their top guys. Thatcher Demko has not played this year. That's supposed to be one of their most impactful, like wins above replacement type players. So you're getting no production out of what's supposed to be your number one goalie, what's supposed to be your number one forward. Now, granted, yes, JT Miller's good. But the thing that's holding Vancouver up is that Quinn Hughes has been such a dominant both ends of the ice player. And I think as long as Vancouver stays winning, it's going to become more and more clear that, wait, Quinn is actually the best player on this team. He's carrying a team full of injuries and depth struggles to, like, I don't know, a number 2, number 3 seed in the West. And that's really impressive to me.
I think you're kind of describing more of a heart case for Quinn Hughes being more valuable than Cale Makar. Because I agree, Quinn Hughes would be more valuable to the Canucks versus Cale Makar to the Colorado Avalanche, because McKinnon's obviously the best player in the Colorado Avalanche. But I just think the prolific numbers, and again, even his 5-on-5 expected goals percentage is 58.4%.
It's good,
I think
but it's not Quinn good.
I get what you're saying, but in terms of the actual results, not just expected goals, actual goals, he's still rocking a pretty good 5-on-5 numbers. I think you just gotta go with you gotta go Cale Makar. I know it sounds, usually I do dive into the numbers and such like that, but sometimes the numbers are so overwhelming in one direction. A guy that has 21 points compared to what Quinn Hughes has 9 points. The offensive impact is so disgusting. And again, 10 of those are at even strength without a lot of top end forward talent outside of that top line he's playing with. I think Cale Makar has to be the pick right now, but I don't think it is some leaps and bounds. I think in a week I could easily say Quinn Hughes if Cale Makar stops putting up 2 points per game nearly. But right now I got to go with Quinn Hughes. I'm sorry.
I got to quit Cale Makar. Before we move on,
yeah.
Hypothetical: if Colorado misses the playoffs, are you still voting for Makar if he keeps up this kind of level of production?
It depends if Quinn. If it's the exact same, we simulate the season based on the numbers.
Makar's got like 150 points, something stupid. Quinn's has like 70-some points, great defense.
As long as Cale Makar is okay defensively, which he is fine right now, not horrendous, I'd go with Cale Makar because it's the best. It's still the best defenseman. It's not the most valuable. Obviously, he deserves no Hart votes. McKinnon, if they miss the playoffs, deserves no Hart votes. When it's talking about just the Norris Trophy, just the best defenseman, the most prolific defenseman that season, I think I would. I take the teams out of it. Like Erik Karlsson in 2023. I know that you were very much against him.
I would not have voted for Erik Karlsson.
I had Adam Fox winning that year, but that's because Adam Fox had 74 points that year, was amazing defensively, and Erik Karlsson had 100. We're talking like 130 right now that Cale Makar is on pace for. So that's just next level, and I don't think Cale Makar will be as bad defensively as Erik Karlsson. So I think that just that would be too much. If Quinn Hughes keeps these defensive numbers and 5-on-5 numbers and gets the 90 points, and Makar has 120, and let's say his 5-on-5, and especially numbers away from McKinnon are lacking a little bit, I'd probably go with Quinn Hughes. I'd probably go with Adam Fox in that situation. But I think if we're talking a 70-point defenseman that's great both ways versus a 130 guy that's even just a below average defensively, I think you got to go with the 130-point guy. As much as maybe that's not the most valuable. I don't know. I think that would be my case for Cale Makar being the best defenseman that season, which the Norris is, not who's the most valuable. Vezina Trophy. 3, 2, 1. Dashdor. Oh, Okay, lay it out.
It's going to be the same argument as the last one. I understand.
You're going value though.
I understand.
Even value, I think I could debate.
I understand looking at every stat. Right now, Lukas Dostal is the best goalie in the league. By all metrics, right? He has the best save percentage, which is insane because he's also facing the most shots in the league.
Yes,
that's absurd.
Yes, so he's the best goalie in the NHL.
So he is by all like normal measures. Yes, he's the best goalie in the NHL. But I cannot, in my heart, give the Vezina to a guy who's not able to carry his team to the playoffs. So I have to go down to like number 2 on those stats, number 2 on goals saved above expected, and that's Igor right now.
But Dashl's still 4-3-2 right now. I think they're 0-2 without him. Isn't that if you're going by value, like I get what you're saying. Like, is Dostal going to keep this up? Is he going to be in Vezina talks by the end of the year? No, it's going to be 3 goalies that are on playoff teams. But I think right now, considering the fact they have above 50% points percentage right now with Dostal in net, that is an incredible feat. Again, as you mentioned before, their defense is pretty god-awful. I believe they're second worst in expected goals against per 60. He has had to carry. He has a 937, and he still has 2.22 goals against average. You look at like Olmark, when he had a 930 whatever, he had like 1.8 because he did not see nearly the shots that Dostal is seeing right now. So I think, again, going back to best goalie, and even in this case, it's not like Dostal has a 3-5-3 record and they're losing a shit ton of games. They're actually a 500 team. They're actually a fringe wild card. Actually, probably not, but they're like a 90-point pace team with him right now. That is just such an incredible feat. I think that's ridiculous. I agree with saying, but Shesterkin in that game against the Ottawa Senators absolutely carried them to a win. They had no business winning that game. But I still think you just got to give it to Dostal because he's doing it on such a bad team. He's doing it in such high volume. I think he started 9 out of their 11 games right now. What he is doing is crazy.
I can't tell you you're wrong. All I can say is I don't believe the hype, and
I'm saying right now.
Yeah, right
now.
What's happening right now is impressive.
I just want to make sure we're on like in a projecting.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening right now is impressive. What he's doing right now is impressive. I just cannot find it in my heart.
This is if the season ended tomorrow.
I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
I don't get your value argument. If maybe I should pull it up. Like I think I forget who the backup is for the Anaheim Ducks, but I assume he's either defeated or has. Sorry for the listeners right now. I'm pulling this up. Anaheim goaltenders. See how bad this other guy's fucking playing. Let's pull him up.
James Reimer, Optimus Rhyme on an .864 save percentage.
Yeah, he's 0-2, .864 with 4 points. He has double the amount of goals against average than Lucas Dostal right now. So if you're going to talk about value for Quinn Hughes, how can you not talk about like 2 + 2 = 5?
I just can't give these awards to someone who's not going to be on a playoff team. And that's not fair to Dostal because he has played fantastic. That's just
then let's do the Calder, because if that's your criteria, I think I know how this one's going. Would Connor Bedard have been your Calder winner last year or Brock?
Yes.
Good. 3, 2, 1.
Wyatt Johnston.
Wait. You mean Logan Stankoven?
I do. That's my bad.
Jesus. I was like, dude, he's like
mixing up
names.
In
his third season. All right, I'll start. Michkov, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points in 12 games. Outside of him and Konechny, like it is dire straits for the Philadelphia Flyers right now in terms of offensive creation. I understand that I'm sure Michkov's defensive numbers, you might bring those up, are not that impressive, but I think him being on even like 60, 65 point pace right now on that dire of a Philadelphia Flyers team with the guys that he's playing with right now. I don't know if he's on the first or second line, if he's centering with like Sean Couturier or Morgan Frost. But yeah, he's already their best playmaker. He's already running that power play. Like he's just really impressed me. You can go with Stankoven now.
Yeah, so Stankoven and not Wyatt Johnston. Logan Stankoven.
Stankoven's playing better than Wyatt
Johnston.
About.
He has, yeah. Straight up, Stankoven leads rookies in points, which is what I would have expected to happen at the beginning of the year. It's still true now. I expect it to still be true at the end of the year.
Assist merchant.
He is right now, right at this minute. Yeah. But he's going to have the opportunity. And this is, I guess, me not following the question super strictly, because in my head, I'm kind of like, well, it does make a difference that Stankoven's going to be put in a position to succeed. Michkov's going to have a fantastic
Michkov is going to play more, though, in fairness. I think
he's going to play more. Yeah, I mean, Stankoven's putting up 15 minutes a night, limited power play time. And then even with that, he's outscoring Michkov. What you can say, he has more points because he's surrounded by better teammates.
Yeah, I think it evens out roughly.
Yeah, it's just kind of how it works, right? Sometimes the Calder goes to the guy with the most minutes, the most center focus of his offense, and sometimes it goes to a guy who's just put in position to succeed because of the context around him. I know what Dallas looks like when Stankoven's out there. He's a good player. He makes them better. I believe in him long term, but I also believe in him like over the next 2 months being a key player for Dallas, right? I mean, while some of the other guys on Dallas have not been amazing.
Jason Robertson.
Yeah, Wyatt Johnston for one. Heiskanen has been underwhelming so far. One guy who hasn't been underwhelming at all is Stankoven.
Duchesne's balling out too. But yeah, in a weird way, I think I'd rather have Stankoven if I was like a contender just trying to win now. I already had all these offensive creators and I needed more of just like a blue collar middle sixer. But I just think Michkov's going to continue to keep on just creating at such a high level. I think he is going to finish around 60 to 65 points. And I think that's going to be really hard for voters not to go for versus Stankoven finishing with. And again, I literally interviewed Stankoven. I should be biased as hell towards him. I love the kid. But compared to Stankoven finishing with like 15 goals, 40 to 45 assists, I think Michkov having 30 and 35 or something like that, I think that which they're actually on pace for roughly, the two of them, I think I prefer the Michkov season, the more explosive season, than say the more under the radar, hard-nosed.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if he can make any like big fun highlights happen, honestly, because his production's been solid. We haven't necessarily seen like the flair that I think I was getting myself excited for with him coming over. I don't know if that's a Flyers system type thing to just play fundamental hockey. there's got to be some give and I mean, there is some give and take with him and
Torts has been good with him.
Yeah, but I'd love to see more like more open play from him, even more like chances to show off highlight reel stuff.
Yeah. All right, that's our awards as of right now. Not too much agreement. Actually, no, we have to do the Adams, right? Yeah,
we do have to
do the
Adams.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Scott Arniel.
Yep.
Yeah. I think you got to go with him, especially because the special teams are like by far the best in the NHL right now. I think they combine for like 120% right now, and that is so coach centric. The 5-on-5 numbers aren't amazing, but they're still pretty good. And yeah, just to come in, new coach. People probably had Winnipeg in the playoffs, but after a 110 point season, I was expecting a little bit of a down year. And he's just done such a good job of letting Nikolai Ehlers too just really run with it compared to Bonus that kind of put him in a box. I think it's got to be him right now.
So textbook, and you're so right. It was so frustrating last year watching Bonus just refuse to play Ehlers or Cole Perfetti. Both of them really got the short end from the previous regime out there, and now they're able to play, and they're playing well. And, you know, I mean, 110-point team last year, fire the coach, bring in a new coach. They're better than they were last year.
Yeah, I think he stepped down. Just want to respect
You're right.
Rick Bonus.
Yes,
but yeah, and also turning Neil Pionk. I don't know how sustainable it is, but Neil Pionk's third in the entire NHL in points right now. It's really crazy. Who would be your number 2 if you had to choose? I think I'd go Spencer Carberry of the Washington Capitals, even though they lost last night to the Carolina. In fact, all those new names making it work, very impressive.
It's impressive. It's such a big gap. I don't even like have a run.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
that's fair.
As long as Winnipeg's going to be a 100-point team in the playoffs, I don't see how you can take it away from like a first year with them coach, because he's been out of the league for a while now.
Yeah.
Coming back in.
2010 Columbus coach. Yeah,
it's been
crazy.
like a decade. And he's coming back in and immediately making his team better.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think. Unless like Sheldon Keefe, the Devils go on an absolute tear, unless Travis Green safely gets Ottawa into the playoffs, 118-point Winnipeg Jets team that wins the President's Trophy. It's going to be hard to beat, but we're going to move on from our awards now. We're going to do Pretenders or Contenders, and we'll start off with the Winnipeg Jets. What do you think? We'll say it again. 3, 2, 1. Pretenders.
Wow.
I'm still going Pretenders. That defense score, even though I just hyped up Neil Pionk, it still scares me, man. I haven't seen massive steps in the defense score. They're playing solid, but I just get flashbacks of Colorado absolutely dismantling them like they did last year. They lost Brendan Dillon. They didn't really add that much on the blue line. I think they need to do something like that to really solidify that. I know Connor Hellebuck hopefully is going to play better in the playoffs next year. I think the forward core can be better, but I'm just not sold on that defense score, and I'm not sure I'll ever be unless they make a move.
I'm sold enough that Josh Morrissey can be a legit number 1 on a contender, and Pionk's an all right number 2. I think Connor Hellebuck is a much better goalie than literally any other contender in the Western Conference.
That's fair.
All of the good goalies are in the East.
Ottinger's proven himself this year.
Ottinger has been really inconsistent over the last 2-3 years. Thatcher Demko it feels like he's barely played in the last 12 months, so I'm not even sure what to expect from him coming back. Their offense, so impressive. It's dynamic. It's deep. You know, you look at the roster on paper, they made no ads, but I genuinely feel
they
like
lost,
by actually letting Ehlers and Perfetti play, those are ads. Those are guys who were getting like fourth line minutes and healthy scratches in big games last year, and they're both actually very talented players. So you let them loose. It's a great offense to add on to career year from Kyle Connor. Mark Scheifele's rebounding well. He's having a good year. Gabe Velarde, very underrated presence out there. He was hurt for, I think, most of last season. He's healthy this year. He's playing really well this year. I'm not saying Winnipeg's going to win the Stanley Cup, but I do think they're a real contender.
Top 5 contender, you'd say?
Yes.
I think they're just on the outside. I'm trying to think. I'm not going to spoil any of these other ones that we're about to go through.
I mean, but I certainly don't have like Colorado on the contender.
Yeah, I think I'd still have Edmonton. I'd still have Dallas. I'd still have Florida, the Rangers. Shit. Okay, they're in the mix, but I think that's like the clear 4
Vegas
right now.
up there.
That's still the clear 4. Maybe I'd still pick other teams ahead of them as of right now. Like The Minnesota Wild. Who would you pretender or contender? 3, 2, 1. Contender.
Oh, another split.
Yeah. I'm going contender on this. I think that they do have the defense core to potentially go on a deep Stanley Cup run. When looking at it, the three-headed monster of Brodin, Spurgeon, and Faber. I don't know if any of those guys are top 20 defensemen in the NHL, but they're probably top 20 to 40, basically all of them. I think that top 6 is good enough, assuming Rossi and Boldy are taking serious steps this season. It's really going to come down to Philip Gustafsson. I'm concerned by him, and I obviously don't trust Marc-Andre Fleury to potentially have to step up in the playoffs. But I'm decently high on this Minnesota Wild team, even though they do have $12 million in dead cap. I think they're a very underrated team, and I probably would pick them over the Winnipeg Jets in a playoff series as of right now. What about you?
I just don't trust the goaltending at
That's fair.
all. Philip Gustafsson's had a very nice start to the season, but like we've seen Gustafsson have good months before, right? There have been 2 years ago, there was like a half season stretch where Gustafsson saving at a 920
he played
something.
40 games and had like a 931.
Yeah, and you're like, wow, this guy's impressive. And then he's, last year falls apart, and him being really bad last year is a big reason why Minnesota missed. He's not consistent. He can be great in short bursts, but he's not consistent.
That's fair.
It's 2024. I don't believe in Marc-Andre Fleury at all as a backup. If there's an issue with Gustafsson, I'm not really sure what's there to believe in with Jesper Wallstedt, but the fact that Minnesota's not playing him at all tells me they don't believe in him. I think Kaprizov's great. Like I said, I think Boldy's great. I wouldn't be shocked if Minnesota's like 110-point team, second or third best record in the West. Kaprizov finishes out the whole season and wins the Hart. None of that would surprise me, but none of it would make me get over my fears with their goaltending.
Yeah, their bottom 6 also doesn't.
It's shallow. It's shallow.
Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman, they're okay pieces. They probably need a better number 4 defenseman, including Jake Middleton. But I would definitely I probably should have. There's not a massive gap between the Minnesota Wild and Winnipeg Jets, in my opinion. But I do trust Minnesota's defense core more, and they do have that true superstar that you usually need in order to win the Stanley Cup. But moving on, we got the Washington Capitals. 3, 2, 1, pretender. Yeah, it's been talking about not having the superstar in order to potentially win the Stanley Cup. They're a very above average team in basically every single regard. I think we can agree in that. But in terms of making it out of the Eastern Conference, I'm just not sure I can see it happen.
No, absolutely not. Do I think they're actually going to make the playoffs? Like just hold their current pace, be the 3 in the Metro? Yes, sure. I've been a Connor McMichael truther for a couple of years, so it's very satisfying to see him finally get the minutes, get the line opportunities, and take them and run with them. He's probably been the biggest pleasant surprise, right, for Washington, what McMichael's done this year.
Definitely, 7 goals, 5 assists, 12 points in 10 games.
Yeah, Logan Thompson has not played great so far.
Both of them
Washington,
are below a 900 right now, yeah.
But, in theory, bringing in Logan Thompson improves your goalies over last year. So, I think Washington's decent. I don't think anything they're doing right now is fake good. I think it's all, their actual low playoff team level, which I think they can stay at for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's fair. I think yeah, they have a very high floor, but probably a low ceiling as well. It's kind of how I describe them. They would need Dylan Strome to really emerge as like a 90-point first-line center, get 50-goal Ovechkin back in order to at all be really scary. Their bottom 6 is still pretty below average, especially when you compare it to other contenders in the Eastern Conference. Good team. They're going to be better than my New York Islanders. I was wrong about that. Okay, then for our final team for pretenders and contenders, we have the Carolina Hurricanes. 3, 2, 1, contenders.
But I don't like it.
Yeah, no, it's the forward core. The forward core scares me too much, but the defense core is still money. I still trust this team to just operate a Rod Brindamore system, and although that system has not resulted in a Stanley Cup final, they've been consistently winning playoff series. And I don't think their losses were kind of overstated. Jake Gensel, deadline acquisition. Shea, not playing that good in Nashville. Pesci playing okay in New Jersey. They got Gothenburg. They got Pesci. They got Walker. They're still not, I wouldn't put them in that top 4 that I mentioned before, but they're definitely in the next 3 that I would probably make.
Yeah. I mean, they're still the second best defense in the NHL right now by goals allowed.
Yeah, their money. 62% expected goals percentage of 5-on-5. It's disgusting.
Their actual goals against, only the Rangers have let in less, and that's because Igor's been so dominant. They've been contenders for the last 4 or 5 years in a row, I would say, and they have made 0 cup finals in that time. So I feel like the same exact thing is going to happen again. You look at this team and say, oh, they're definitely a contender. They're so well structured. They are playoff built to play defense and grind you down, and it's not actually going to result in playoff wins. And I fully agree with you. Even like this year's Hurricanes team on paper is worse than the one last year that didn't get very far. It's worse than the one 2 years ago that couldn't make the finals. So, like, technically contenders, but I don't actually believe in them to win the East.
Yeah, it just thinks that, like, they know that they have to face probably Igor Shesterkin in the second round, and they're going to outshoot the Rangers 40-27 every single game, but Igor Shesterkin's going to nut up. But I still think that they are a damn good team, and people counted them out before the season, but they really weren't that much worse off. And I think next year, once Nikishin comes over from Russia, they could be a damn good team. But we're moving on. Agree or disagree. Basically, we're taking your questions, your kind of takes, and we're going to say whether we agree or. No, I thought you pointed the camera. That was off. Yeah. But then we're going to give we're going to say your takes. We're going to read out your name and all that, and then we're going to say whether we agree or disagree. Up first from Rose Broom, he says the Canucks are frauds. 3, 2, 1. Disagree. Yeah, I think if Demko can come back, I think they're going to be fine. And even regardless, they just have a lot of forward depth, and I think Pettersson, it's only going to be up from here. And they're the top 3 defensemen in the entire NHL.
Yeah, I don't expect them to be amazing right now. I just expect them to stay afloat with Kevin Lankinen as their goalie. Right now. And that's what they're doing. No Thatcher Demko. You're staying afloat. You're safely a playoff team with Kevin Lankinen.
And Pettersson being like a third line center in production. Like
this is a good team.
Yeah, and especially once they get back on track and all that, they're definitely in that. I put them in that same second tier of contenders still with Carolina. If they're fully healthy, they'll be a really tough out for the Edmonton Oilers or the Dallas Stars if they get to play them. Next up, we got this from Jonah Lewis, 06. Columbus doesn't finish bottom 5. Right now they're 5-1-1, I think. 3, 2, 1. Disagree. Yeah, I think San Jose is going to be worse. Montreal is going to be worse. Chicago is probably going to be worse. But outside of that, I think I'd still pick Calgary to finish ahead of them. Anaheim probably will be worse, but I think they're probably going to be that number 5 spot. There's a decent jump off between actually Philly might be worse. Maybe I agree with this, actually. Actually, I'm going to agree with this because they're dealing with a ton of injuries. I'm actually going to agree with this because they're having such a hot start. Dean Evison is very much a floor-raising head coach. Can he win in the playoffs? I don't know because Minnesota just couldn't get it done. But he's a damn good coach. He's going to raise their ceiling, and they could finish with 77 points. That's what we're talking about avoiding bottom 5. We're not talking about them actually contending.
I just don't believe at all in the offensive talent there. It's just so thin.
Yeah.
I do think Anaheim has a lot more upside than you're giving them credit for. I know I just speaking anti-Anaheim about 15 minutes
I was
ago.
very high on Anaheim before the season, but they're below 500 with Dostal in 9 out of 10 games, giving them 937 goaltending. I still think that they can be above 72 points, which is what the over-under was. But they're not going north of 80 at this point.
No, but I think they can be better than Columbus.
That's fair.
Still.
No, I think Columbus is definitely going to be in the mix. But yeah, when I broke it down like that, I think they might be the 6th worst team right now.
I don't know. I mean, I think Montreal is going to end up.
They're bad
slightly better than
they're
Columbus.
Bad
they are. They
talked
are.
about it. They're bad.
But they have real talent there that I
That's fair,
expect to play better in the next couple months. Not Columbus has talent that you're hoping to play better in the next couple years.
That's fair. I just say Columbus does have a couple guys out right now that they're hopefully getting back. But we'll move on. Next up, TD Wiesel. He says Ovi breaks the goal record this season. 3, 2, 1. Agree.
Disagree.
I have him in fantasy, so I'm a bit biased. But he has 6 or 7 goals in 12, 10 or 11 games right now. He's on pace for it. He's on pace for 49 goals. I think he does it. I think not only he does it because he's on pace for it right now, but if it's 5 games to go or 10 games to go and he needs 6 goals, even if they're in the playoff race, and we think they're probably going to be the third Metro team or like in a wild card spot at this point, they are going to be feeding him so much. Like that is the objective. Even though they want to make the playoffs, Ovechkin getting that goal record is going to be such an objective of that team that I could just see like him ripping off 6 shots on goal down the stretch in an attempt to get it.
I just
he needs 42
totally
in the season.
Disagree with your premise there. I think that because Washington
No.
is going to be a low-end playoff team,
it's not like,
I think they're going to have
it's
to.
not like this is some bum, though. It's their best goal scorer.
It's not, but I don't think they're going to stop what they're doing to get a
I'm
goal
not
record
saying like
if they're
Ovechkin's
in,
going to
like,
be
a
weaving
tight
through the neutral
playoff
zone
spot.
like and shooting it from the fucking blue line to try to get shots on goal, but I want to believe. I think that'd be really cool if Washington made. Although I don't like Washington that much, if they made the playoffs and like Ovechkin broke the record with like 81 game 81. Next up, Tori McClintic. Well, this guy's a day one, but he says Pettersson needs a change of scenery. 3, 2, 1. Agree, but it's not going to happen, if that makes sense. Like, ideally, he would go to a different team and get his confidence back up, be the true number 1 center ahead of JT Miller, or like not have JT Miller ahead of him. But realistically, Vancouver, can't trade him. They'd get nickels on the dollar or something like that. It would not be worth it for him. And also, Vancouver is still trying to win, and their best route to winning is by rehabilitating Elias Pettersson's ego.
Yeah, I mean, there's no realistic version of this where Pettersson gets traded. It just will not happen. But I do agree that like what's best for Elias Pettersson is probably to get out of JT Miller's shadow and find a new environment where he can be more of the leader, more of the top playmaker. Yeah. He's not going to get that in Vancouver.
He would thrive in Columbus.
He would. He actually would, I think. I have like a young team to grow around because it's kind of like what I was saying with Washington, right? Like Vancouver can't afford to like build game plans around boosting Pettersson's ego. They have games to win. And if the way to win games is going to be put Pettersson on the third line because that's how he's playing right now, they're going to do that because they want that 1 seed, that 2 seed, whatever it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him right now, and we saw him last year kind of fall off once the pressure got high, and that's not good considering the Vancouver. That was his only experience in the playoffs outside of the bubble. Not good, but he's not going anywhere. That's wishful thinking. Next up, we got one non-hockey related from RBZada36. He says, MetLife Stadium was a bad choice for the World Cup final in 2026. 3, 2, 1. Disagree.
Agree.
Disagree.
No, this is the smartest person who has ever written into this show.
What?
MetLife Stadium is not actually in New York City. It is 2 train transfers away. The World Cup is going to be entirely international visitors coming in.
What stadium? Because we gotta be realistic. It wasn't gonna happen in Mexico. It wasn't gonna happen in Canada. No. What stadium then? SoFi Stadium? That's not in downtown LA.
Dallas in
the middle of nowhere. Dallas is in Arlington.
You have an airport there. You have public transit.
No, you don't. Dallas? I don't think you do. Metro. They still have a Metro line going NJ to MetLife. They run that for Jets and Giants games. Obviously, it was going to be a major city. Out of the major cities, LA, Dallas, New York, you can't do Miami because that's also in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's the perfect spot. It's the perfect spot. It's the New York area, and it is metro accessible, and it's not going to affect more so everyday traffic. So people, citizens of New York City, are bogged down by it. I think it's a good spot. Obviously, like ideally, like it'd be in Minnesota because their massive indoor stadium is like right in downtown. But that wasn't going to happen. I'm pro MetLife, Jet Life as I call it.
No, you have entirely international people coming in. No one's going to be driving. You need train system to work. And the train system out of MetLife's just not great. The real soccer heads know that you probably should have held the final in the Azteca in Mexico City. That's the historical stadium, but more money in the U.S. It is what it is.
MetLife Stadium. I guess you probably could have done like Atlanta. That's kind of in downtown. But lastly, we hinted at it before when we were talking about the Oilers. JT1910 says Draisaitl is a true heart contender. 3, 2, 1. Disagree.
Okay.
I think McDavid, if he comes back Saturday, unless Draisaitl has like a 5-point game or like has 8 points in the next 2 games, I just don't see it happening. I think McDavid's going to find his legs. Maybe neither of them are going to be true heart contenders when it's all said and done. But I don't think if it was like a month-long injury for sure, I could see Draisaitl kind of leaping into actual heart contention. But if McDavid just misses like 4 or 5 games, which is what it is looking like, I don't think that's enough.
If Draisaitl has a 5-point game, he has 5 points in the 2 games that McDavid hasn't played in.
I meant a 5-point singular game.
I mean, I'm not saying he's going to win the Hart necessarily.
He's definitely like a
lot
top 10 right now.
For that to break right. Here's, I guess, how I need to phrase it. If McDavid is going to miss any period of time, Draisaitl better be a Hart contender for how much you're paying him, right? Yeah. If you give him that giant contract and he's not up to the task of filling McDavid's shoes and being an MVP when McDavid's not there, what are you paying him for? No, you're paying him for power play tap-ins when McDavid's on the ice with him? Like, he's won a Hart before, so he has it in him.
McDavid missed like 6 or 7 games that year,
Yeah, exactly, right? If he misses 6, 7 this year, I'm not saying you will win. I'm saying, like, for everyone in Edmonton's sake, it better be true that he's a real contender if McDavid's going to miss time.
No, I think he will continue to produce without McDavid. It's just more so he's not even off to this insane start. He's playing good right now, but he's not even off to this insane start where he's number 1 right now, and then McDavid gets back. Like when McDavid missed time in that season, like it was him and like the two of them were jockeying it for first with like Nathan McKinnon. Right now, when McDavid went down, he wasn't even in hard discussions. Kirill Kaprizov is decently ahead of Draisaitl even now. So I think once McDavid gets back, that's going to be a little bit hard to kind of make ground for Draisaitl to potentially go on a Hart campaign. But if McDavid somehow has a setback and is out 3 to 4 weeks, you could definitely sway me the other way. But right now, if McDavid plays 77 games, I'd have a hard time believing that Draisaitl could win the Hart.
Draisaitl's outscoring him now. Like when McDavid was healthy, Draisaitl's outscoring him now this year.
Yeah, that's fair, and that's the show. That's episode 5. Let us know in the comments. What do you think? Go follow the Instagram so you can be featured in it with our agree and disagree. I just realized we did like the 3-2-1 like throughout the entire episode. We got to switch that up in something in some way. But let us know in the comments. What do you think about this? We'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.